Golos, Tireless Pilgrim, the most popular commander in the format, just got banned, so unfortunately now it's time to talk about replacements. I'm going to go over the most popular archetypes that Golos led and show you my top replacements for the former king of 5 color commander. First up, we've got big mana decks. Golos was one of the top choices for big mana strategies, basically loading up decks with huge splashy haymakers such as asymmetrical board wipes like Ruinous Ultimatum, the stompy Swiss Army Knife Zakama Primal Calamity, or stealing stuff and taking extra turns with Expropriate. The rest of the deck is filled with ways to cast these giant haymakers, usually being huge mana spells themselves like Omniscience, Emergent Ultimatum, and Amanatu's Augury. Golos helped cast all these giant spells with both his Enter the Battlefield ramp and his activated ability, which let you cast one or more of them off the top of your library for just 7 mana. Fortunately for big mana decks, there are plenty of good replacements for Golos that keep the deck functionally the same. The most obvious of the bunch has to be Jodah Archmage Eternal. While Jodah doesn't immediately ramp you, nor does he provide card advantage with his activated ability like Golos does, he can cast any of your super expensive bombs in your hand for just 5 mana, which will often be a massive discount. Also, his ability is much more reliable than Golos's if you aren't manipulating the top cards of your library, since Golos could whiff and just hit a pocket of lands, whereas you know exactly what you're casting with Jodah. But there are other sweet 5-color big mana options as well. If your big mana deck runs tons of multicolor spells, then Ramos Dragon Engine can be a great way to power them out. Just drop down Ramos, start casting spells, and the dragon will start giving you a whopping 10 extra mana to work with per activation. If your big mana deck was all about cheating out huge creatures or planeswalkers off the top of your library with Golos' activated ability, then Esika, God of the Tree, is a perfect replacement. Her frontside can help ramp out cards in your hand, while her backside, the Prismatic Bridge, reliably cheats out cards off the top of your library, never whiffing and not costing any mana to activate either. In fact, if your big mana deck was already all about cheating haymaker creatures, then I'd argue Bridge is even better than Golos, being harder to remove and more mana efficient at what it does. Next up, we've got the hugely popular and expansive Lanes theme. By far the most popular established archetype that Golos players went for was 5-color lands. Decks that focused on getting lands into play and abusing the permanent type as much as possible. This makes a lot of sense since Golos was the only 5-color commander that could fetch any type of land for you, grabbing the best lands for the occasion like the World Tree for mana fixing, Dark Depths to unleash a huge monstrosity, and of course, Field of the Dead to pump out an unending stream of zombies while doing regular land things. Meanwhile, you have access to all the lands matter cards in the format, like Tatyova Benthic Druid to draw cards and gain life, Azusa Lost But Seeking to dump more lands into play, and Ramunap Excavator to play lands from the graveyard, getting extra value out of your fetch lands and other sacrificial lands. Now there's a few subcategories of land decks, so which replacement commander works best depends on what type of land deck you want to focus on. A majority of these land decks are also Maze's End decks, whose goal is to assemble 10 guild gates, then activate Maze's End to win the game. Maze's End decks often utilize Scapeshift and Reshape the Earth to find Maze's End and all the missing guild gates all at once. Plus Amulet of Vigor, which lets you untap all the lands as they enter the battlefield to activate Maze's End and win the game on the spot. In a Guildgate deck, Golos was utilized primarily for his Enter the Battlefield ability to find Maze's End or whatever missing guild gate you needed at the time. Interestingly, most of these decks would never even use his activated ability, so as to not risk accidentally exiling crucial guild gates in the process. Of all the archetypes to replace Golos in, Maze's End is definitely the hardest, since no other 5-color commander can tutor up these specific lands. However, Maze's End decks have existed long before Golos was ever printed, and they will continue to exist without him. I actually owned a Maze's End deck for a few years before Golos was printed, and my commander of choice was Child of Alara. While Child of Alara doesn't find your guild gates, it can serve as a reliable way to wipe the board of all non-land permanents, buying you lots of time to assemble your finisher. Combine Child of Alara with a sacrifice outlet like High Market, and you can wipe out everyone's board, slowing down your opponents while leaving your guild gates untouched. Pair Child of Alara with Fool's Demise, so every single time you sacrifice Child of Alara this way, you get to return Child of Alara back to the battlefield and do this over and over again every single turn. This essentially is a soft lock on the table, allowing you to assemble your gates at your leisure. Now, if your land deck was focused on legendary lands like Dark Depths, Gaia's Cradle, or Yavimaya Hollow, then there's actually a 5-color commander that can function in a similar way. Sisay Weatherlight Captain. Sisay can fetch any type of legendary permanent, including lands, so your Dark Depths can be grabbed easily if needed. Now, the other popular archetype for 5-color lands was landfall decks. Decks that wanted to ramp out as many lands as possible and run cards that trigger off lands entering the battlefield, drawing cards off Tatyova, making armies of plants with Avenger of Zendikar, and taking a bunch of extra combat steps with Morag, Fury of Akum. For these decks, as much as it pains me to say it, my advice would actually be dropping black so you could run a 4-color commander that fits this theme just perfectly. Omnath, Locus of Creation. The vast majority of Golos landfall decks I found while researching this hardly ran any black cards at all. By giving up black, I'd argue you'd get an even more powerful landfall commander in your command zone while still pretty much running all the landfall cards that Golos was running before. It sucks that I have to recommend dropping a color, but Omnath provides so much value to landfall decks in the command zone, I assure you that you won't be disappointed. Another popular archetype that Golos led was 5-color Superfriends. These decks are built around planeswalkers, letting you mix and match all of them in the same deck with even more freedom than other more popular Super Friend leaders like Atraxa Praetor's Voice provided. Cards like Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, Gaedrone Dihada, and Tamio Field Researcher all could hang out in the same deck. The rest of the deck is built around taking advantage of planeswalkers with cards like Doubling Season, Oath of Teferi, and the Chain Veil to get the most out of their loyalty abilities. In these decks, Golos served as both mana fixing ramp to help get out your most expensive walkers, and a way to cheat them out with his activated ability. Plus, he was a blocker when needed. Luckily for us, we do have some options that are just as good, if not better than Golos, for 5-color Super Friends. Isika, God of the Tree's backside, the Prismatic Bridge, is practically made to lead Super Friends. As long as you make sure that you have few if any creatures in your deck, the bridge will be cheating out planeswalkers each upkeep for no mana, and being an enchantment means it's extra difficult for your opponents to stop your value train. If you want more control in what planeswalkers you're cheating out, then I highly recommend Sisay Weatherlight Captain as a planeswalker commander. Planeswalkers are all legendary permanents, so Sisay can start tutoring them out onto the battlefield with ease, working her way up to the most expensive ones. Finally, we covered the most popular use of Golos out of them all, and that's 5-color Goodstuff. Whether you're jamming all your favorite cards together in one pile, or you're building an oddball flavor deck, Golos was a great choice in enabling Goodstuff decks to do their thing without any color restrictions. Fortunately, this is perhaps the easiest replacement of them all, and I get to bring up 2 awesome commanders I haven't yet touched on in this video. One of the most fitting has to be Kenrith the Returned King, who does a little bit of everything you could need at a reasonable price. He can also be used politically, using his abilities to work out deals with opponents, like giving your opponent's creatures haste if they promise to attack a mutual enemy. Kenrith's abilities are always useful without needing to build around, though he's also a terrific launching point for more powerful brews that use him as a combo finisher. Another new and excellent choice for 5-color Goodstuff is Garth One-Eye. This is a Swiss Army knife of a commander able to provide anything you need from ramp to recursion, removal, card draw, or even a dragon. Garth is always useful no matter what the situation, which is fantastic in a Goodstuff deck that doesn't lean towards any specific synergies. And those are my top replacements for Golos decks. Bannings always suck for the people who are affected, and since Golos was the most popular commander in the format, that means a lot of people are probably bummed out right now. But hopefully, if there's anything to take away from this video, it's that your 5-color decks will continue to work just fine with or without Golos. And that's all I got for now. If you're enjoying these videos, then do be sure to like and subscribe to help this channel grow. And until next time, friends, see ya!